everybody. I am back. I am here to give you my take on Iyanla Fix My Life. This is season 6, episode 6, titled Broken Reality, Trina Braxton. Okay, now y'all will understand that in a minute when I actually talk about the episode. But before I get into that, if you kind of like me within this first 24 seconds and you're not a subscriber, go ahead and click that subscribe button. I promise to provide great commentary on a variety of shows I review. And for those returning subscribers, thank you so much for your support. Okay, now that that's out the way, let's dig into the episode. It was a good episode. The Braxton sisters may be a little disturbed by Iyanla's digs at their family, but we'll get to that. Okay. So, just a little background history before we get into the nitty gritty and why Trina and her ex-husband of 2 years now were there. Just background history. Trina Braxton. The Trina Braxton, this is her signature move. I did not just make this up. She is one of 5 Braxton sisters. So, if you're unfamiliar with Trina Braxton, I'm sure you know Toni Braxton. Trina Braxton is one of her younger sisters. She was a backup singer for her for years. She is now a recording artist on her own, and she is the owner of Bar Chicks, which is her own bar/restaurant. They travel, do different events, everything. So, and she is also one of the stars on the hit show Braxton Family Values, featuring her, all of her sisters, her mother, her dad, sometimes her brother. So, fame is all around her. Okay. And Gabe, if you are familiar with Trina Braxton, you have to be familiar with Gabe. He is her ex-husband now. Her and Gabe were married for 12 years. At the point of recording this show, they have been divorced for 2 years. Trina has 2 children, being Caleb and Eric. Caleb is 19. Eric is 22. They are not Gabe's biological children, but Gabe has been in their life since Caleb was 2 years old. So he has basically been a father figure and played that role. The importance of them being on the show is that all 4 of them are on this episode of Iyanla Fix My Life, and Caleb, the youngest, no longer speaks to Gabe ever since the divorce between Trina and Gabe. Okay, a little bit more background information. Oh my gosh, this is killing me. Trina and Gabe have suffered a really public divorce. Even sometimes they filed for divorce but didn't go through with it. But basically, it played out on Braxton Family Values and in the blogs. Gabe has cheated on Trina 1,000,001 times, and probably 1,000,002 with random people online, and then just whoever else. And it was just always embarrassing to her. And basically, she initiated the divorce because she did not know when the next time it was going to happen again, and he was going to embarrass her and humiliate her publicly. So she just couldn't handle it anymore. So, coming into the house, Iyanla is extremely hesitant to even do this special with them. And she reveals that information to them. She said they're used to the cameras and the lights and, concealing truths, not letting too much come out, basically protecting their reputation. And so she said, I don't want to do this with you because to me, this is not about fame. This is not about the lights, camera, action. This is my ministry. This is what I do. This is what I'm good at. And I'm here to heal people. So if you're not here to be authentic, then that's what scares me. And that's, I want to help you, but I don't want you to waste my time because you're doing this for fame. But they claim to be there, because they have real issues and they really want to work through this. So she asked them why they're there. For one, Trina still remains physically and emotionally available to this man that's no longer her husband, that has no desire to remarry her. Okay. But she is at this point where she's trying to figure out where she fits, where her and Gabe fit together as far as a friendship or relationship. And Basically, she feels like he's her soulmate that she can't be with, and he'll always be a part of her life. And she is bothered by the fact that her younger son and Gabe do not speak to one another. Okay, so then we have Gabe. Gabe says that, he loves Trina. Trina is like his best friend. He can call her about anything. But at this point, he needs help communicating with her better as friends and then setting boundaries in their relationship so they don't cross the line because it gets hard at times. And he wants to rekindle a relationship with his youngest stepson, Caleb. Okay. So, which let me just add this in. I'm a little confused because Caleb is 19. He's not 9. He's 19. So, wouldn't it be up to the two of them if they want to continue a relationship? It has nothing to do with Trina. So, because they got a divorce doesn't mean that he has to stop talking to the children, but it doesn't mean that he has to continue talking to the children, if that makes sense. I guess it depends on the depth of their relationship prior to the divorce. But whatever the case, they're all there, so clearly they want to work it out. Okay. So then Trina goes a step further to say that her youngest son, Caleb, has a problem with the fact that Gabe is still closely connected to their family and that, Gabe goes out to eat with them and then Gabe has like stayed over to their house. Basically, Gabe stayed over to their house because he had like a surgery on his mouth that required him to have someone take care of him for 24 hours. Of course, Trina did that. However, he expanded his stay beyond 24 hours, and he was actually there 3 to 4 days. Then after that 3 to 4 days, he moved into her guest house in the backyard for a month until he found his own place. Now, those are definitely not clear set boundaries, and I would understand where the son would have a problem because it's kind of confusing. I'm sure that they both claim to still like love each other, so I'm sure there was a little bit of flirting and things. And for children that still live in the house, it's probably a bit confusing that this guy that you divorced that caused you so much strife is now staying here for a couple of days. But whatever, they haven't fully communicated with their kids, so that's where the problem comes in. And Gabe and Caleb don't communicate at all. So basically, Trina feels like Caleb actually blames her for taking away another father figure out of his life because Caleb's real father is not in his life, has never been in his life. And then when she got divorced from Gabe, it's like taking away this only father figure that he's really had. And she just feels like that Caleb takes it out on Gabe, but he's really upset with her. Okay, so we'll get to that. So Iyanla asked Gabe, what did you teach Caleb about being a man? What did you teach either of her sons as far as growing up to become a man? And then Gabe really doesn't have a response. Gabe says, I really don't feel like I taught them anything. Trina disagrees, but it's not her question to answer. It's Gabe's question to answer. So Iyanla goes a step further to tell Gabe, you were the demonstration in front of Caleb every single day. So whether you taught him something, like you actually spoke to him, this is how you need to be a man, I'm trying to teach you X, Y, and Z. He still watched you do X, Y, and Z. So the way you treated him, the way you treated his mother, he watched you, and that's what you indirectly taught him. So that's something to keep in mind for later on in the episode. So Iyanla is very aware of Trina and Gabe's public feuds back and forth and all of the embarrassing, humiliating things, scandals that have come out in the public as far as infidelity in their relationship. So Iyanla asked Trina, what is the conversation that you had with your sons regarding Gabe's behavior? So then Trina kind of says, I just told them, stay off of social media. People are saying a lot of things, but he didn't do these things to those people. He did it to me. So just stay off social media. in a way, I felt like by her saying that, she was kind of trying to like soften the blow a bit. She was still kind of trying to protect him in a way, and they aren't fazed by what the people online are saying. They're fazed by the fact that he actually did this, like, to their mother. Like, he hurt her in this way. So her explanation to them, I'm sure it didn't help them feel any better about the situation. And then Gabe doesn't even remember the conversation that he had with them concerning his mishap. So this is already definitely not a good seed to plant with her sons. Okay. So then Iyanla goes a step further to ask Trina how she feels about being the wife on the other side of the divorce. At this point, Trina and Gabe are both like, wow, I never thought of it that way. I don't think I'm the wife on the other side of the divorce. Well, honey, you are, because you're taking care of him. He can live with you whenever he needs you. You're there for him. You're always picking up the phone. I mean, you're literally that support system and there for him in every way, especially when you remain physically available to him as well. You're there for him in every way that you were as a wife. You just don't have the legal title anymore. And Iyanla went a step further to say, she has an ex-husband as well. There's no way, even if he had a surgery that required 24-hour assistance for, a day after his surgery, there's no way, even with their good relationship, that she would do that for them, because they have set boundaries. So, when those lines get crossed, things start to blur, problems occur, and then they end up speaking to a counselor of some sort, like Iyanla. Okay, so of course they're both in denial, but we're going to leave them to the side, and we're going to go to the children. Okay, so not really children, young men. So Iyanla goes to speak to Caleb and to Eric. Eric, we can see, is mainly there for support. Eric, his current relationship with Gabe, it's not a problem. He basically sees Gabe as like an equal. Like, I'm a man, you're a man. I can talk to you on that level. I don't really have a problem with you. But he's more mature than Caleb. Whereas Caleb, the trauma of the divorce has negatively affected him in a major way. He goes as far as to say that he doesn't like Gabe. He hates the mention of Gabe's name. He thinks that Gabe is a jerk. He remembers growing up there being a lot of yelling in the house for no reason. And basically, nothing that Caleb did, he felt was good enough for Gabe, when all he was trying to do was do what he told him to do. But Gabe didn't, I guess he didn't embrace Caleb's efforts. So basically, Caleb says that at this point, their relationship is non-existent. He's unsure of whether or not he wants to have a relationship with Gabe, mainly because of the way that Gabe treated his mother. He says that Trina's self-esteem is terrible at this point. And it's because of Gabe. And so Iyanla asked, how do you know this? Is this what you think, or is this what you know? So Caleb says, this is what I know, because my mother told me this, like, herself. She was depressed, and she was at a point where she was just eating a lot because she was depressed. So of course her physical appearance was changing. She was in a relationship with someone else at that point, but she would even say things to her son like, I know he doesn't love me, or I know he doesn't love me the way he says he loves me, because how could he love someone that looks like this? So basically, Iyanla is furious that Caleb has said this to her at this point, because she can't believe that Trina revealed that information to her son. So Caleb says, well, me and my mom speak very candidly. And I know there's a lot of people out there that say, they can talk to their parents about anything and vice versa. But at the same time, I agree with Iyanla. There should be boundaries. That was definitely an inappropriate conversation for her to have with her kids, especially her son. He definitely wasn't at the maturity level to hear that, and to be able to carry that burden of hers now. Iyanla basically says there's some places that you don't need to take your children with you. And that was one place. She wasn't in a good place emotionally, and being that her husband was no longer around and they were divorced, I think there's like an automatic reaction to sons that they now have to like play this like protector mode or make sure that their mother is okay. So in that sense, I feel like Trina may have been a little selfish and not realized it and revealed too much to her son and didn't realize how much it was going to affect him. So at this point, he's extremely hurt and enraged, and he's not even fully aware of his feelings at this point. But Iyanla is picking up on this as she's speaking to him. She's also picking up on the fact that she asked Caleb if he had anything positive to say about Gabe. Caleb couldn't come up with one thing positive to say, keeping in mind that Gabe came into his life at the age of 2. He didn't have kids of his own, but he elected and vowed to take care of her children as if they were his children. And he's never touched Caleb inappropriately. He's never made him feel unsafe, yet Caleb can't figure out one good thing to say about him, not even the fact that he just helped to be a provider for them. So Iyanla is very upset about this. So, of course, she wants to go talk to the parents. She does say that she sees a lot of, she sees that Caleb is just like Gabe in many ways. So, a furious Iyanla goes to speak to Trina and Gabe, and they're not even trying to talk back at this point. They're just taking it all in. She goes in there and says, your boys, I'm disappointed in you. I'm mad. I'm furious because your boys weren't raised. Okay. Trina, you were busy chasing fame, and Gabe, you were busy chasing anything with 2 tatas and a rear end, and that's not okay. Okay. So her kids have both expressed that, like, neither one of their parents, they like weren't around a lot or like active in their life. Like, they're physically there but not active in their life. And so I could see how that would easily occur, especially if in a marriage the spouses are having marital issues with one another. Sometimes that is a direct reflection on their relationship with their kids, and they indirectly neglect their kids or the needs of their kids because they're so wrapped up in their own issues and trying to work through that, and they continue hitting a brick wall. So I'm sure that played a part in it as well. But basically, Iyanla explains that Caleb has shut down his feelings just like both of his parents, Trina and Gabe, and you can see that visibly on the screen. Gabe disappears. He says it's not possible to shut down your feelings. And Iyanla says, oh, you do. You do all the time. From the neck down, it's like you have absolutely no feelings. The problem is that Caleb doesn't feel your heart. He doesn't feel that you care, or that you ever cared, or that he's good enough in any type of way. And she even goes a step further and is talking to Trina at this point and says, for that boy to sit in my face and tell me that he hates the man that raised him, that never made him feel uncomfortable in any type of way or abused him or anything, the fact that he can say that he hates him, that's on you. So I definitely feel like this is a family effort. You can't give people credit for, like, it's hard to give people credit for things when they've hurt you or they've done you wrong. But if you can remove yourself from the situation and say, he wasn't the greatest, but he did do this, and that for you. He didn't, he didn't mistreat you per se. There were things that he could have done differently as far as having an emotional connection with the kid, which that means a lot. But he did what he knew how, not being a father previously. And I do think it takes both parents, because there's no book on parenting, but you're supposed to be a team. And maybe somewhere where you're slacking, especially if you're together in a marriage, that's when you kind of nudge the other parent. You're like, I think that this is how our kid feels. Maybe you could try this, or maybe you should have some time with him. I do think it should have been like a team effort. Okay. But anyways, then Gabe boldly says that Caleb needed that love from his blood father, not from me. And I thought that was absolutely ridiculous, because that his blood father is not around. And you are the father figure in his life. And you are acting as the father and taking care of him as if you're his father. But you're saying that he didn't need that love from you. He needed it from a man that was not even going to be around. And you are well aware of that. So then Iyanla goes a step further to say, is that why you didn't give it to him? And then he said, well, yeah, maybe part of it. Okay, so clearly a conversation needs to be had to dig deeper into Gabe's feelings. Okay, so basically, all four of them are experiencing something different within the same situation right now. So Iyanla wants to uncover some truths that she feels like are being covered up. So day two, she starts off having an off-camera conversation with Gabe so that she can get the truth. We can hear the conversation, we just can't see them. But basically, Gabe reveals that he was like verbally and sometimes physically abused in his marriage. Um, so then we have Gabe and Trina both together. Iyanla asked Gabe, why did you marry her? Gabe says that he loved Trina. She was outgoing. However, she resembled something that he had become accustomed to. He was accustomed to being belittled, being pushed around, being bullied. That's what he was used to in his childhood. So for him to meet a woman that has like all these good qualities and he's attracted to her and he loves her, but he also is oddly attracted to the way that she treats him because that's familiar to him, although it's not proper treatment. Trina is becoming teary-eyed at this point. She basically, reveals that like she didn't know. Gabe gets really choked up, and he says, "What I wanted to tell you that I didn't know how to tell you was that I was mad and angry for letting you bully me and push me around. How I experienced you was mean, hurtful, and painful. You became an enemy to me, and it reminded me of my whole life. You made me feel so small and never good enough." And it is interesting because his feelings towards Trina are the exact same feelings that Caleb has towards him, the feeling of not feeling good enough. So it seems like a cycle at this point that hasn't been addressed until now. Um, Iyanla asked Trina, what did you just hear him say? Trina says, I heard him basically say that he was miserable. She's devastated at this point. Gabe leaves to get himself together, but Trina basically feels sad. She's like, how could I be with someone all this time and not know that this is how they were feeling? Um, which Trina seems to have a type A personality, and she's like, seems to be dominant in their relationship. She even reveals that she wanted him to be the head of the household, but he didn't. He always put her in the position to be the head of the household. And so Iyanla says, well, did he do that or did you volunteer to do that? Because that's what you saw growing up. Iyanla basically believes that her interaction with Gabe is a function of what she saw growing up. Which, if any of you are familiar with Braxton Family Values, Miss Evelyn, Trina's mother, is a very strong-minded, independent woman. She's actually extremely resentful of her failed marriage as well, which I believe her husband was cheating on her. Some of these are learned behaviors, and that basically is what Iyanla is trying to express to Trina in so many words. She says to her, I'm sure your mother would be shocked to hear how she taught you to be mean and bitter as a woman. At this point, Trina is like lost for words. She can't even believe it because she knows Miss Evelyn, Tony, Tamar, Tawanda, and Tracy are all gonna watch this show and be like, Iyanla got another thing coming, whatever her name is. We going straight to her house because that's how her sisters are. That's how her family is. Like they will gang up together and be like, I know you're not talking about my mother. So Trina at this point, trying to protect her image and the image of her family members, she's like, I really can't talk at this point. Like she leaves. And you can tell that she's not in denial. She doesn't disagree with what Iyanla is saying, but she can't say that she agrees out of fear of disappointing her family or painting them in a bad light. But the truth will set you free, okay? So basically, Iyanla goes and has an off-camera conversation with her and gets her to agree to come back on camera to reveal the truth so that they can actually heal and move forward. Okay, so then we have Trina and Gabe together again. It's time for Trina to respond to Gabe. So Trina tells him, I think I impressed upon you what was impressed upon me. She basically tells him, yes, it was a learned behavior from all the way down to her youngest sister Tamar. They all act this way. But she did apologize to him for being verbally abusive. You could tell she's really loved him, and those were not her intentions to hurt him in that manner. But he then apologizes to her for not being who she needed him to be, which I think she really needed to hear that, and not respecting himself enough to tell her the truth. So I think that's the problem that occurs in a lot of relationships. People are just kind of like scared to tell the truth, how they really feel. Gabe was even like choking up on camera because that was his first time telling her the truth. And the fact that she became his enemy, of course he would do all these things behind the scenes to humiliate her because he really was resentful of her and didn't like her. He loved her but didn't like her. So it's easy for him to do these things. And her being like sad and hurt and crying probably only affected him so much because of like the bitterness and angerness that he held inside for the way that she treated him. Okay. So Iyanla then says, being unaware of their individual pain has caused them to inflict that pain on each other. So now they're both coming to grips with what their pain is and where it comes from and how it has affected their relationship. So then we have a separate conversation with Gabe and Caleb. Yeah, we getting through this, okay? So Caleb goes to tell Gabe, I'm angry because of the unfair treatment with me and my mother that you gave to me and my mother, and then just never being good enough for you, a lack of guidance from you. I felt like I never had a proper father figure for 16 years of my life. He's very honest. And earlier in the show, Caleb said that he wouldn't say anything to Gabe. But like I said, Caleb was just like a tiny piece of glass, like waiting to crack. He wants to really talk to Gabe. So then Gabe doesn't disagree with him. He doesn't even try to, excuse any of his actions. He just says, he literally says, I agree with everything you said. I didn't know how to be a father, to be honest. And I never felt good enough to be with your mom, to be totally honest. So we have the same feelings. At that point, Gabe also tells Caleb that he loved him and that he apologized for the way he treated him and, more importantly, for the way he treated his mother, because both of those things affected him. You can tell Caleb is very grateful of this because he actually begins to smile, and it's like that's all he was waiting to hear. Caleb forgives him at this point, and he truly feels and believes that Gabe loves him. And they've both agreed that Trina is going to stay out of their relationship because this is two grown men at this point. So if they're going to have a relationship with one another, they don't need Trina in the equation to have a relationship. Okay, but basically wrapping up the episode, Trina has learned that she needs to be a better communicator. She speaks at people rather than to people. They need to be clear and consistent with the boundaries that they set, and the two boundaries that they set, of course, was no intimacy with one another, and then they are not to discuss the intimate details of their personal relationships with others. And then the good part about it is that Caleb is open to having a relationship with his stepfather once again. So Iyanla ends the episode with some wise words. She says, you cannot outlive the pathology that gave birth to you. Once you become aware of the pattern and acknowledge it, you are empowered to take action and live beyond it. And I totally agree with that. As I said in the last video, we're all affected by our childhood in some type of way, and it determines our pathology, our patterns that we repeat in life. But if we are aware of that and we acknowledge it, we are empowered to be able to change that negative habit if it is negative, and to be able to move forward and not repeat generational curses, basically. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoy. Please like this video, comment, subscribe, everything. Yeah, I'm out of words at this point. I hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, bye.